Hello my friends and welcome once again to this Red Gaming Tech video, myself and Marta. Hope you guys are having a good day. I'm here as always with the latest news from the tech world from the last 24 or so hours as of the 24th of June. Don't know how it's almost the end of June, but here we are. Anyway, we're going to get stuck right in because we've got quite a bit to discuss today, and we're going to begin things with some benchmarks for the XT Ryzen processors. So these don't need much preamble or introduction. They are the Matisse refresh processors. I do, however, just want to credit Tom Apisak on Twitter. He has shared these benchmarks obviously on his Twitter account, and you can find a link in the description below this video as well. So he's found various Geekbench benchmarks for each of the processors in the Matisse refresh, the 3600, 3800 and 3900 XT. So because it's at the top of the stack, let's start off with the benchmarks with 3600 XT. So we see a single core score of 1361 and a multi-core score of 7914 in our very first results, and for the second result we see 1388 and a score, for the single core, and then for the multi-core we see a score of 79110, not 110, that would be very strange. Moving up to the 3800 XT, we see 1415 for the single core score and 9850 for the multi-core score. On for the second result for the 3800, we see 1408 for the single core, 9795 for the multi-core, and then finally for the king of the XT processors, we have the 3900 XT, single core score of 1413 and a multi-core score of 12970. And then for our final result on this table, we see a single core score of 1390 and then a multi-core score of 12458. So this pretty much paints the picture that we already have seen painted regarding the XT processors. If you already have a Ryzen 3000 processor, you're not going to be rushing out to buy these XT parts. But if perhaps you're still on the original Zen or you're on an older Intel part even, and you're looking to upgrade, they're bringing some not bad results to the table, and again, they were never supposed to reinvent the wheel. They were obviously just to compete with what Intel has going on. But we do have one more Ryzen thing to discuss today, and it's actually regarding Ryzen 5000 Cezanne. Now obviously these are APUs and they have once again been spotted, and this time around it is the device ID for the chips as well as a few other details that have leaked as well, but obviously with all things that don't come from the mouth of AMD or the company in question, take it with the usual pinch of salt, TM. Anyway, so we're going to be discussing first of all a tweet from Kamachi, a very familiar name as well. Once again, you can find their tweet linked below, and as you can see it says Memo 1638 1002 Cezanne Renoir, which basically means that the Cezanne APUs are going to have the 1638 device ID, and if you haven't already seen them, there was at least 13 PCI IDs, spotted already by Rogame for Cezanne. You can of course see that on screen right now, and you will find a link to his tweet in the description alongside everything else. Another thing that Kamachi had to say is that the Cezanne APUs are still based on the GFX 9 architecture, which means essentially that we're going to be seeing yet again an enhanced version of Vega on the next generation APUs. Also as well, Cezanne is going to feature a brand new CPU core just like we saw with Renoir, but we'll do it with an enhanced revision of an existing GPU core. We're also apparently going to be seeing Cezanne come to the AM4 platform, which would mean, if it's true, that the AM4 platform is going to last until 2021, and we're going to see the move from AMD to AM5 around 2022. Now this does seem very likely because we do know that Vermeer desktop processors, that being Zen 3, are launching later on this year, and there'll be more parts launching in 2021 to basically fill out the rest of the lineup and wave a hurrah and a thank you to AM4, which obviously has been around for ages. So let's move on to our next topic, shall we? We're going to switch gears to Intel now, and first of which is something very interesting for Alder Lake. So this is very weird, this one. It's a tweet from Kamachi again, of course, you can find the link below, and it says Alder Lake P documents and datasheets. And my first question is, what is it? because Alder Lake S is the desktop, so that raises all sorts of questions about what Alder Lake P is. It could maybe be something to do with those big.little rumours that have been doing the rounds. You may recall there's been rumours that Intel are going to be switching to that sort of design for their upcoming processors. You know, it could even be a different form factor or potentially mobile parts, but they already have a standard nomenclature for mobile parts. And it could also be a HEDT part, but again, they also have a nomenclature for that. So, what is Alder Lake P? Who knows is basically the answer. Let me know your thoughts, guys. I want to see your thoughts in the comments. Let's see who ends up being right in like a couple of months' time. I'm curious what you guys think Alder Lake P is. So, just to refresh, the options are something to do with the big.little rumours, a different form factor, mobile, or HEDT. Let me know your thoughts. But speaking of Intel, and a bit of an update to something I discussed yesterday, Intel have commented on Apple's departure from x86. Now, if you missed my video yesterday, spoiler alert, go watch it, it's good, but then again I would say that. Anywho, if you missed it, Apple are moving away from Intel's x86 processors for their Macs. They're going to be creating their own processors that are going to be using an ARM-based design. And obviously, this is a pretty huge move for Apple to make, even though it's obviously not going to be an instant like buy, Intel gets chucked in the bin, no more products ever. Obviously, that's not how it works. Again, if you want the full details, go watch my video yesterday. But Intel have actually issued a bit of a statement on this, and given that I discussed this yesterday, it seems only fair. So, an Intel spokesperson said to Tech Power Up, and of course you can find their article linked below, they said, quote, "Apple is a customer across several areas of our business, and we will continue to support them. Intel remains focused on delivering the most advanced PC experiences and wide range of technology choices that redefine computing. We believe that Intel-powered CPUs, like those based on the forthcoming Tiger Lake mobile platform, provide global customers the best experience in the areas they value most, as well as the most open platform for developers both today and into the future." Now, obviously, Intel aren't just going to, fall over and die now that Apple have left them. Obviously, losing a company that big is going to sting, but they'll be just fine. Speaking of ARM, though, we actually have a pretty interesting something from them up next. So, according to the Top 500 project, which basically ranks supercomputers, and it released their 55th edition of their supercomputer rankings, and right now, the top system is Japan's Fugaku, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, which was a jointly developed system by Riken and Fujitsu. And the reason this is interesting is because this is the first time ever that the #1 spot is powered by ARM hardware, and one of just 4 supercomputers overall that run on ARM. And this is Fujitsu's A64FX SoC, and that's obviously doing the number crunching there. Each SoC is equipped with 48 cores, and there obviously are tons of them inside the supercomputer. For the curious out there, because I know you're wondering, what's the GPU? Unsurprisingly, it is an NVIDIA solution, an NVIDIA Tesla V100 to be exact. Now the real question here is, how long will the ARM supercomputer, there we go, there's words, will be at the top of the list? Obviously I don't know. I'm not a psychic last time I checked, but even if they don't stay there for very long, it's still pretty damn cool, and obviously coming on the heels of their win with Apple that they're using their ARM-based process in the future for their Macs. It's kind of nice to see, I guess. Anyway, we're going to finish with a console segment now. We've got a few topics left to discuss, and the first of which is some comments from Bloober Team regarding the Xbox Series X. Now this should be a name that's pretty familiar with you. They have done some pretty nice games. One called Observer, one called Layers of Fear, and of course the Blair Witch game that they did. And they had a new one which was shown at the Xbox event last month, which is called The Medium. So they were interviewed in the latest issue of Edge magazine, and they explained that the hardware inside the Xbox Series X console has finally given them the power to go forward with the concept of the Medium, which apparently has been something they've been wanting to work on for a while. So first of all we have a comment from Jacek Zyber, the producer, hopefully I pronounced that name correctly, and he said, quotes, "The biggest issue was tech. How can we do the things we want to do? And for the current gen, we started developing the game with some ideas as a base, but then we thought, okay, this generation is not going to handle it. The Xbox Series X came in and it was like, maybe that will work. We don't feel there are many boundaries now. With the SSD, when you transition between worlds, there is no loading time. You are there. Transitions. No loading times means better immersion." And then a comment from Wojciech Pyko, hopefully I pronounced the name correctly there, and he said, quote, "Xbox Series X has resolved many of the problems with the current generation that we had. We were able to deliver on the current gen, but it would not be the same game. The vision would not be fulfilled." So this kind of ties into something that I was discussing yesterday with the various comments from developers like EA and so on, talking about how it's more than just graphics upgrade this time. You know, the improved graphics, as I said, is lovely, don't get me wrong, but I'm more excited about what else it's going to bring to the table. The fact that this game just wouldn't have existed before is interesting to me. In what way? How are we going to see that actually play into the gameplay, story, that sort of thing? And it's just interesting to see already the developers getting creative with the idea of no loading times, because it sounds pretty basic on the surface, like, yeah, you're in an open world game, it means there's no long ass loading screens. Cool. That sounds great, but obviously you can take it even further than that. Really get creative with that core concept of no loading screens, or minimal loading screens even. So it's going to be a good one, I think, for both systems. I'm pretty excited to see how developers actually use everything that the new consoles are bringing to the table. Next up, however, we have some news for the PlayStation 5. A new patent has surfaced once again for the UI. So this is a brand new patent which has been filed on July the 23rd to the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and it is for a, quote, "menu screen display method, menu screen display device." And the main thing we're focusing on here is, of course, the drawings that come with the patent. Give us a rough idea of what to expect. Now, obviously, you should always keep this caveat in mind that what you see in this patent, even if it comes to fruition, obviously the PS5 is going to come with a UI, that goes without saying, but even if it comes to fruition for like a product or something else, it may not look exactly as it does in patent, so just keep that in mind. Now, you look at it, it looks pretty similar to what we already have, to be honest, but the patent also proposes a, quote, "unified user interface in terms of a menu screen." So this basically means that it hopes to prevent players from opening a separate menu just to go to the UI, and it also looks like you will be able to have multiple apps running simultaneously. Now, obviously, we've not seen the UI yet. The closest we got is a very tiny teaser during the Sony event where it literally was just press the PS button to use your controller, and then the biggest difference is that the screen was black instead of blue. You know, woohoo, let's throw a party. Obviously, we're going to have to wait and see what the UI is going to be like, but this gives us at least an interesting potential for what it could look like. So we're going to end on some very interesting comments that I think are going to lead into a longer video in the future from Shawn Leyden. Now, he basically discussed that he believes the current AAA development growth is unsustainable. This was an interview with GamesIndustry.biz, and he discussed The Last of Us Part 2, which was partially developed during his time at Sony. It's roughly 10 hours longer than its predecessor, and obviously more advanced. And obviously because of those things, it took more money to develop, but obviously it's still sold for the same price, $60. Now, I'm not going to speak for him here, I'm just going to read what he says, and then I'm going to go into my thoughts afterwards. He said, quote, "The problem with that model is it's just not sustainable." And then, just breaking quote for a second, he went on to explain that current generation development costs reach anywhere between 80 million and 150 million, and let me blow your hats off for a second, that's excluding marketing costs. And historically, AAA budgets have doubled each generation, so if this pattern holds true, a full fat AAA game could cost 300 million. I said the right number eventually. I'm sorry guys, it's very hot today, I'm feeling a bit fried. Anywho, let's go back into quote mode. Quote, "I think that in the next generation you could take those numbers and multiply them by 2 and think that you can grow. I think that the industry as a whole needs to sit back and go, alright, what are we building? What's the audience expectation? What is the best way to get our story across? and say what we need to say. It's been $59.99 since I started this business, but the cost of games have gone up 10 times. If you don't have elasticity on the price point, but you have a huge volatility on the cost line, the model becomes more difficult. I think this generation is going to see those two imperatives collide. So here's the thing, I don't really think that games can get too much more expensive. You know, with DLC and expansions are already ridiculously expensive, but even if you just take a base game, you know, a game like The Last of Us 2 costs almost £50, depending on where you buy it from. Can even go over 50 if you're just buying it from like Game or something. And obviously, as Shawn himself said, $59.99 in America. Now, I discussed ages ago, and I will link it in the end card on the video so you can just go watch it. It's quite an old video now, where I discussed the over-bloated budget problem that AAA has. And I kind of want to revisit that based on these comments. Because do games need to be that expensive to make? Now, obviously, they're always going to be expensive to make, obviously. A huge game like The Last of Us 2, or a big open world game like, say, I don't know, Red Dead Redemption 2, or GTA 6 if it ever comes out, if the cow ever stops producing milk that is GTA 5. Obviously, they're going to cost a lot to make, but do they need to cost as much as they do? I don't think they do, to be honest. And go watch my video that I will link, and you'll find out why I think that. Anyway, that's me done for this video. I'm going to have a cold drink. You have a nice day. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.